Hi, this is Harry, and I'm just doing a quick little video with Giacomo. And we're going to talk a little bit about Savage Worlds and how to make a character. Are you feeling pretty excited about that?
I am very excited, very much so. Yes, yes.
So, what do you have kind of bubbling around in your brain?
Um, well, right now, my thought is I'm going to use my kisser method.
Do you want to refresh us a little bit on what Kissa is?
That is knowing, inspiration, um, simplification, and what was the A?
Actualization.
Actualization. That's the word. Yeah.
So, when it comes to knowing, what do you know about Savage Worlds? Like, what would you say is the number one thing that you need to sort of walk into with?
Well, I think the thing that you need to kind of know the most is that it's the sort of thing that your stats, if they're bigger, they're better. And the focus is a lot on hindrances and edges. And so you have to kind of think about what you want to have for drawbacks for your character, while you're thinking about what you want to have for good backs for your character, you know?
I know what you're saying. So that kind of covers your knowing. So you know that you need to think about edges, hindrances, higher is better.
And also, the other thing is, I kind of just took a quick look at the core book and I sort of skimmed through to see what I thought was interesting.
Does that sort of start going into what you would think of as more inspiration?
That's the bridge to inspiration, I think. Yeah.
So, what is your main inspiration for your character for for Savage Worlds?
Well, I've been listening a lot to this band that's called Castle Rat, and I really like the main singer. Her name is Riley Pinkerton, but she go by the Rat Queen, and I think that she would be pretty cool and groovy to have as a character. And so that's kind of where I'm starting at.
What would you say if someone says, well, that's not a super original idea? You're legitimately playing a character that's someone else's character.
But I I have to say, too bad is what I want to do because I want to play a strong, beautiful woman with big 1980s hair and all that sort of thing. That's what I want. And what I want as a player is kind of important. You know, like, don't get bogged down as a slave to originality. Because sometimes just being a trope or being something that you kind of have a good grasp on is better than just trying to be original and not enjoying yourself. The most important thing is making something that everyone can kind of enjoy.
When thinking about Riley Pinkerton as a character, what do you even kind of where do you even start?
What I did is I just kind of made a list, and I was like, what is hurting me? And so I made a list, and the list is that first her name is Riley, and her last name Pinkerton, and she's the rat queen, and she's strong, she's pretty, and from what I've seen, like the videos and stuff, she can kind of like take a licking and keep on ticking, you know. So I think that she's sort of tough and durable, and she wears this like chainmail armor, and I think that that's an important part of her character, even though it's not very like protective, because you can kind of see like the bottom of her boobas, and you know that's kind of not super appropriate for protective wear, but I think it's important. And she got this like big old sword, and she got this big old hair, and I think that that's like the important things of her character.
So more or less, you're thinking about the aesthetics more than anything else. Like that's the main important thing at this point for you.
Yeah, I think that that's really fair. Um, can you focus me? There we are. Yeah, I think that that's pretty fair. Like, I think that the visual is a good place to start, and the emotional kind of can come from that too, because now the next thing I do is I start thinking about what I wanted for her hindrances. And that's kind of where things started to get interesting because I was like, number one, she's a human, right? And so that's like her ancestry. And so now I get that out of the way. The hindrances wise, I put that she got a death wish. So that means like in the game, she thinks that her life is not as important as some other things in the world, you know? So that's sort of like a major theme.
So once you start kind of getting into that, the hindrances, you start kind of building the actual essential character and what their theme is.
That would be fair to say, yeah. So so I have her having a death wish, and I also have her with a major enemy. So because in the story of the band, the Rat Queen is like this peasant girl who got killed off in a plague, and she was brought back to life, and she's being pursued by the Rat Reapers. And so I think that like her having a major enemy that is death, the personification of death, I think that that's really an important thing, and that'd be very interesting.
She has sort of this nihilistic almost death wish, and death itself is an enemy for her.
And the other thing is she's driven. Like she really wants to protect the realm and its people. And that's the thing that's more important in her life. And so that kind of like right there builds out the character the way I want her to be. Like she's a leader, both of people and by like bringing them together, but also fighting for the rights, you know? Like she's a stand-up-ish kind of person.
You kind of have a good view of the character through their hindrances. What do you do about their stats? Like, how do you put that together? Because at this point, you're sort of starting to come into the like simplification, making her into something playable.
Yeah, that's it. That's the next spot. So I start thinking about how I can take this nebulous idea and make it into a solid character. And so I decide she look a little bit like a barbarian. So the first edge I take is the class edge barbarian. And so now I know some of the skills she has, and I know that it's important for her to have a high vigor and a high strength. And so I start parting out what I have for her attributes. And so I decided that she'd have okay agility. So I put that up to a D6. I left her smarts just like a D4. And I put her spirit up to a D6, her strength up to a D8, so she's strong. And then I put her vigor to D10 because I thought that it would be important for her to really have a super high vigor so that she can be super tough.
So after you have her main attributes done, uh, and you already know that, so you know she's going to be a barbarian. So you kind of know that she's limited to medium armor. You have an idea of the weapons that she'll be able to use. You start putting together her stats the way that you want them to be. So she's going to be kind of fighty because she's got a good strength. She's going to be tanky because she has good toughness. Um, with her agility, she should be pretty okay with her parry and that sort of thing. So, uh, what did you do for her skills? Like, where? How did you figure what you wanted to have?
Well, I looked through the whole list of skills and I noted the ones that you automatically get, which are the athletics, common knowledge, notice, persuasion, stealth. And then I decided the ones that I wanted to add. The biggest ones I thought they would be good were the fighting, because she's gonna fight. And I also wanted to put the taunt because what I noticed that like I had a pretty okay spirit for her, and so I decided that I wanted to be able to sort of like taunt her foes. And so I started putting out the stats, sorry, not the stats, but the skills in that way. So I was like, put her athletics up so she could throw things. I didn't really care about her common knowledge because she's, you know, she's smart, but she's not like knowing all the things. She doesn't need to be a font of knowledge. She has her sort of own way of looking at life and what's important. And then I put her notice up. I put her persuasion up. I put her stealth up. And I put her fighting way up. And then I added the taunt. And I don't know if I really should have kept it because what I noticed is I like the idea of her having good persuasion, but I also like the idea of her having a little bit of taunt because I like the idea of her being able to talk to a crowd, get them all riled up. But I also like the idea of her being able to like dare a foe into beating her up, that sort of thing.
You kind of gave yourself a couple alternatives for her socially, and then made sure that she had stuff that she could do physically.
Yep, yeah, that's it. That's exactly what I did because I wanted to make sure that I had something to do when when we're not fighting. Like I want to make sure that there's a skill that she can use when we're role playing because it's kind of boring if you just got a fighter that just fights and then when you start having like let's all sit down and talk about stuff with a villainy guy and then you just sort of sit there with your sword just waiting hoping for something to happen. Tick tick, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I kind of get you there. So you got your skills. Uh, what's the next? Where do you go next?
Then I started looking at just like what she had so far for her for her like abilities and things. So she gets the rage, she got the certain armor she can use, and that sort of stuff. So I kind of made like mental notes of that, and then I started thinking about what I wanted to do for her other edge and what to do with the points from her hindrances and all that. And so what I ended up doing is I just sort of moved around some of my points, made some things better, and eventually I decided that I wanted to make her brawny because I thought that'd make her tough. But then I decided, all right, I want to actualize my initial thought. I want to make her the character that I envisioned. Instead of making her brawny, which would have made her a really strong barbarian, I made her attractive because she's attractive. Like that's my whole thing is I wanted to play a beautiful woman who wore the armor with her boobo sticking out the bottom. And that's what I wanted. And I wanted to swing a big old sword. And I wanted to be able to take a lick and keep on ticking. And that really didn't need for her to be brawny as much as it needed her to be just like attractive. Because now that gives her a bonus to her persuasion. It also gives her a bonus perform, but she's not going to be performing much. But it's the persuasion that I wanted the bonus for. And so now I end up with this character who she has this like powerful, persuasive personality. And she can also kick a lot of butt.
You decided to sort of make it a priority for her to be the idea that you had versus being something that's really more effective inside of combat.
It may be a dumb idea. It probably is a dumb idea. But I don't like to optimize a character if I don't have to. I think that I'd rather have a character that's true to my vision that I'll enjoy playing, and then maybe they don't do too good. But at least I knew I tried.
So that's pretty much your whole kissa in review, pretty much like actually applied.
Yep. Yeah, she's pretty much all of that. So all that's left is just to buy the gear and make sure all my numbers crunch right, and then away we go.
All right. Well, thank you so much for actually taking the time, sharing what your sort of thought process was. And maybe we'll just do a quick overview for the folks at home so they can kind of know exactly how to make a character.
I think that sounds pretty good. But tick tick, we're like maybe 15 minutes of shooting, so this is probably gonna be a pretty long video. So maybe make that separate. Maybe put this in that there Kisser playlist because I think I finally done did the rest of it because I did this.
It's not a bad idea. So, do you have anything else to say to the folks at home?
I do. I hope that you make a character that you enjoy. And when you do, and you sit at the table, not only do you enjoy your character, but you help everybody else enjoy the game with your character that you like.
Those are very wise words, Giacomo.
Oh, that's so nice, Harry. Thank you so much.
So yeah, so that was Giacomo's process of making a character for Savage Worlds. The long and short of it is, um, you start out with just your concept, and then you take that concept, you select what you're kind of aiming for, and then you build them out by selecting up to 4 points worth of hindrances. So major hindrances are worth 2 points, minor hindrances are worth one, and then you can exchange your hindrances to be able to either buy additional edges, buy better attribute scores, buy more skill points, or buy more starting money. So each of those things have a different systemic advantage. So of course, better attributes mean that you're going to perform better. Better skill points means that your skills are going to be better. Uh, Starting out with more cash money, you're going to be able to buy better equipment right out the gate. So if you want to start with your heavy armor, you're going to want to have that. So your hindrances are actually a major part of the character that you're making. From there, you get 5 points to spread across all of your attributes. So each point you spend, you can raise an attribute by one die type. The higher the die type, the more likely you're going to succeed at something because there is a fairly solid number, target number, for every challenge that you have, and that's a 4. It can be adjusted by 1 or 2, either way, either +1 or +2. Of course, these target numbers can also be opposed. So you'll have a opponent that you're going against, and they will roll an attribute or a skill, and then you're trying to meet or exceed that attribute or skill. And for every 4 points above that target number you roll, you get what's called a raise, and a raise can give you additional damage, additional effects. It's generally a good thing. Once you have your attributes put in place, then you can select your skills. You get 12 points to throw at skills, and the same thing as before. 1 point raises your die type up one. So you have your athletics. I got the list. Athletics, common knowledge, notice, persuasion, stealth. Those are all your basic starting abilities. They all start at a D4. And any other uh, skills that you want to purchase will cost a point per die, up to the point when it's the same die type of the associated attribute. So, for example, fighting is associated with your agility. If your agility is a D10, you can put in D4 is 1 point, D6 is 2 points. D8 is 3 points. D10 is 4 points. If you want to put it up to D12, it's going to cost you 2 points because you already raised it up to your highest die type. So, and the highest you can raise your score is a D12 unless you have a specific ability that lets you get higher than that. I actually have to double check the skills to see to make sure that cap is in place. I think that might just be attributes, but anyways, um, more on that. I'll probably put a little correction down at the bottom. From there, after you have your skills put into place, you have your attributes put into place, you have your hindrances put into place, you can select your edges. So your edges are all your positive things that your character can do. In the Pathfinder Savage Worlds, you start with a class edge. And if you're a human, you get an additional edge for free. And this is also the point where you're going to want to spend those hindrance points. Because for 2 hindrance points, you can get an additional edge. But then you also might want to spend those hindrance points to up your attributes, skills, or starting cash. Whatever you decide, this is the time to definitely get there because you may need to get a stat up to a certain point to be able to buy the edge that goes along with it. So if you need to have an attribute that's D6 and you don't have an attribute that's up to D6 yet, this is your time to spend those hindrance points to put your attribute up to a D6. Simple as that. Once you've got that done, you can do all of your, um, what do they call them? What's the word I'm looking for? Derived, I believe, derived stats. So your pace and your parry and your toughness. Pace starts at 6, and then if you are big, if you are small, if you are super fast, that will go up by 2 or 1, down the other way, depending on what your ancestry is, depending on what edges and things you might have. Your parry is half of your fighting plus 2, so whatever your fighting die is. So, for example, with the character that Giacomo is working on, her fighting is D10, so half of that is a 5 plus 2 is 7, so her parry is 7. Toughness is half of your vigor plus 2, so the character's vigor is a D10, so 5 plus 2 is 7, plus any armor. So she's got the chainmail top, so that's 8, 9, 10. So yeah, is that, wait a minute, let me double check. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep. So she's a 10 for toughness. And then what we would do is we'll put 10 toughness and then in parentheses 3 for the armor. So that's important for later on when you have things that are armor piercing attacks, that they ignore those points of armor up to a certain point. And then just buying all the gear, whatever's needed. And you basically have your fully fleshed out character. You can write out your backstory and everything that you need. But the long and short is, as you make a character in Savage Worlds, you're making everything about them that makes them who they are. So it's a pretty cool system. Encourage you to give it a try. And other than that, we'll see you next time. I think that's it. All right. So from me and Giacomo and everyone here at Giacomo and Friends, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment if you have anything. If you have anything else you want to know more about, if you want to see a more professional explanation of how to make a character, go ahead and let me know. Instead of just me at God knows what time it is, probably should be in bed soon, rattling off how to make a character with my best pal in red. All right, so I hope you all have a wonderful time. I hope that you enjoy Savage Worlds, and we'll see you next time. Bye.